Welcome to The Naked Truth. And now, your host, Bridget Barclay.
Hi there, good evening America, and a very early good morning in England. Welcome to the Unacknowledged Radio podcast, and I'm your host Bridget Barclay, and this is The Naked Truth. Tonight I have a very special guest that I've been wanting to speak to for quite some time in regards to his background and due to one of my experiences that I had on the freeway that involved military. So without any further ado, I am going to introduce you Mr. Richard Charles Doty. He's a former Air Force intelligence officer. Hello, Richard. Hello.
Hello.
We're just intonating the books. So, Richard, I'm just going to give you a little introduction, and then obviously I'm sure everyone knows who you are, but for the people that do not know who you are, and there are quite a few people that are new still to ufology that are just sort of taking interest because of the public and the media and obviously the Congress. Right, Richard, you are former Air Force Defence Intelligence Officer. You have been attending intelligence courses, Defence Intelligence Agency and Central Intelligence Agency, and you were at Kirtland Air Force Base as a counter-intelligence officer. While signed at Kirtland, you were there briefed into special access programme and detailed the British government historical involvement with this is mind-blowing when I even have to read it, because that's quite amazing. Extraterrestrial entities in UFOs and flying objects, which we all know about. I've waited 30 years to even hear that in a sentence. I'm sure many of us experiencers have waited to hear that and to hear what we hear in Congress. So please introduce yourself further. Give yourself more credibility than I can give to you, please.
Well, my name is Richard Doty. I go by either Rick or Richard. I served in the United States Air Force, the regular Air Force, for 4 years. I got out, went to college. Then I was recruited in the United States Intelligence Service. I went to a number of different intelligence operations courses in Washington, D.C. and other locations, some of which were classified, still are classified. And then I was assigned to the Air Force Office of Special Investigations as a counterintelligence officer. I served at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And there I was briefed into a special access program involving the subject here, UFOs. Now they're called UAPs. I also served at the famous Area 51, or at the time it was called Groom Lake Complex. And I served up there 2 different tours as a counterintelligence officer. And I was also briefed into different special access programs. When I talk about special access programs, these are programs that are highly classified, involving mostly reverse engineering in some way or another of some type of non-human entities and non-human gadgets, I'll call them, and or reverse engineering. And I did that from about 1977 until 1988. 1988, I left government service, and I did a number of things in private industry, and then I went to work for Dr. Putoff at the Institute for Advanced Studies in Austin from 1994 until 2007. Then after 2007, I worked at another private company, and I retired. I've worked for Gaia for about 5 years. I have over 100 episodes at Gaia. I've been a advisor on a number of movie sets. I think the last total is 11 different movies I've been an advisor to on set. I've written 12 scripts for movies. 4 of them were adopted so far. Hopefully the other ones, the other 8 will be. And I also, in my spare time, I teach online at the Defense Continuing Education Program. I teach mathematics.
Oh, wow.
So that's Richard Doty in a nutshell.
Wow. Okay. I was going to ask you what projects that you were doing, but I didn't know that you had gone into being a maths teacher amongst everything else. Right. So, Richard, obviously, I'm an experiencer, so I'm going to ask you some questions from an experiencer's point of view. I want to talk to you about, working at Groom Lake or Area 51. Can you start from there, please, for me?
Well, at Area 51, I was a counterintelligence officer. Did a number of things there, but my primary mission or duty was to protect classified projects. And these classified projects were special access programs containing sensitive compartmented information. And our job was to protect the operations from the enemy, such as back in those days, the Soviets or the Red Chinese. They were primary enemies of or threat from espionage during that time period, the Cold War era. Mm-hmm. And so we did a number of different programs to prevent the Soviets from getting into our special access program. And one of the things we did back in those days, and this is something that a lot of people out there think is somewhat funny, but back in those days, prostitution was legal in the state of Nevada. It was controlled, and so we knew that there was military personnel would frequent these ladies, and so what we had to do, we had to prevent from the knowledge that these Air Force personnel had working at either Tonopah Air Force Base or Groom Lake, or also the Nevada Test Site or Indian Springs Air Force Base, which is called Creech Air Force Base at this time. But and so what we did was we recruited all those to be cooperating sources of information for us, and we actually recruited every single prostitute that worked around a Nellis Test and Training Range. I think back then the total was about 80. Wow. And so if those ladies had an Air Force person tell them something strange or try to impress them by some knowledge that they had, they would then contact us, and then we would eventually contact the Air Force person, and then some of it was mundane, pertained to absolutely nothing. But there were cases where back in those days we were experimenting with the F-117 stealth aircraft fighter jet.
All right. Oh, gosh, yeah.
That was classified back then, and we had a pilot that told the one of the prostitutes at near Beatty, Nevada, that he was working on a really classified plane called the F-119. Well, that got back to us, and we eventually called him in. He admitted it, and he was no longer a pilot.
Right.
So
well. Everyone's ears are pricked up now. Quite literally. Wow. Us ladies have our means of getting information, I have to say. All you gentlemen do as well. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That was just one of many different things that we did. And other things we did, we found Soviet spies taking pictures outside the perimeter of Nellis Test and Training Range. We found Soviet listening devices planted around the Nellis Test and Training Range. So that's some of the things that we did. But the operations that were occurring in the Nellis Test and Training Range. Now, when I say Nellis Test and Training Range, that encompassed Tonopah Air Force Base, which was in the western part of Nellis Test and Training Range, Groom Lake Complex, which included Area 51, a southern test range southwestern test range near was called Wellington site, and then also the Nevada test site where we years ago tested nuclear weapons. But now that's called Nevada National Security Site. But all those areas and including Creech Air Force Base were included in Nellis Test and Training Range. So we had a big area to cover, and there were only 5 OSI agents assigned to that area.
Okay, so I wonder if you went in the way that I went in. So I'm going to tell you that I got arrested at Area 51. I went there with the BBC as a part of the documentary. Would I do it again? No, probably not. It wasn't a laughing thing. We went for the BBC. I don't know if Race has got the pictures to show you. We were well. It's muffled. It doesn't look quite great because I had to go back to the coach and to go and get my passport. But I had a little camera in there, so I took 2 pictures from the coach to where we were. So obviously that's before the line. You might show the other ones. So yes, so there's the thing that you shouldn't go under, which we went under, and then you can see the other one in the background, and you can see the 2 buildings. What are those 2 buildings, Rick?
They're the entry gates. I think
Okay.
I believe this is going to be the west or either eastern perimeter of the. This is going to be just north of Rachel, right? This is
yes,
the entrance.
It is. Yeah.
So it's called a Cedar Gate, the Cedar Pipeline Road. That's the Cedar Pipeline Road.
Okay.
That enters into the northern Nellis Test and Training Range.
Okay.
Those are the security facilities at the gate. Those 2 buildings.
So the 2 buildings that you see on the right hand side, the far one, well, we got underneath the first layer of that lifts up, and then we decided to go underneath the second one. And stupidly, me and the cameraman Barney Broomfield and somebody else behind us, one of the camera girls, Barney put his camera down on the floor, and we went and knocked on the second one, right? On the one furthest away. We knocked on the door. Now, when I could see through the window because there were blinds, and I could see 2 officers sitting down. TV was on. This is so bad. TV was on. They were watching baseball and they were eating. They had no clue that we were there, but obviously other people had a clue that we were there. But then we knocked on the door. Barney put the camera down, knocked on the door, and then all hell broke loose. 2 guys just got up, guns on the floor now. So we were then on the other side of the raised arm on the floor, and there was 10 of us, part of the BBC, 10 of us cameras, camera people, boom girl, everybody was there on the floor. And then from that second building, there were 2 guys. Then all of a sudden, obviously from underneath, there must have been about 8, 9 guys just come up, and we were all in a line on the floor. We had to give our phones, we had to give everything. They took our camera equipment away. One by one, we had to go back to get any form of identification that we had, and hence that's when I took those 2 pictures. But yeah, naughty me. But we had to erase everything else that was on our phone that we had taken there. And it was really, really scary. I have to say, I just thought, and I'm going to say, shit, oh my God, I've got no phone now. How am I going to call my kids? It was one of those things. Helicopters, cars, there was loads of them. We got told it went as high as Washington. They would have called Washington in and then asked what to do. And then we had I think have you got that race there? You've got my receipt there, my arrest sheet. This race got the arrest sheet. You must have the arrest sheet. Have you got the arrest sheet? The white one?
No, I didn't get it.
Didn't you? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. That's on the website then. So basically, oh yeah. So it was just a ticket. They gave me a sort of like a ticket. Where is it? I got it here. Actually, I got it here. But it says, when did it happen? It happened on the 14th of May, 2012. And I was more upset at the fact that I might not be able to get back into America. But they did let me back into America. But yeah, there's my ticket from being arrested. It cost the BBC a lot of money for all of us, let me tell you. And the camera equipment did come back afterwards. And the documentary was made on it. But yeah, would I, out of that little building, 2 guys, then 10 guys. It was like, so what goes on down there? I haven't a clue, but you do.
Well, what year was this?
It was 2012, May. It was about, we were there for about 5.5 hours on the floor at gunpoint.
And then a Lincoln County Sheriff's deputy came up and gave you a citation, right? Yeah, he
did.
Yeah, and that's normally what they do. And then you had to appear in the county magistrate court, right?
No,
or you just paid a fine. Just paid a $650 fine.
Yeah. BBC paid for all of us. Yeah, it was. So yeah, I wouldn't do it again. Definitely not. But I'm glad to say that I've done it. I got arrested.
Well, there have been cases of people that didn't end up quite.
I know, as lucky as us.
Quite like you. You're lucky compared to some other people who spent 40 days in jail and other property was taken from them. 2 Canadian, and this has been on the internet. 2 Canadian, a couple. They're from Alberta, Canada. They drove on to into the Nellis Testing Training Range on a road that wasn't, there was no gate there. And they actually drove for 11 miles inside. And they were detained, and the male, the female was pregnant. She was a couple months, 3 months pregnant or something. They didn't keep her in jail long, but the male, who was actually the instigator and had taken a lot of photos, he spent 40 days in jail before he went to federal court in Las Vegas and the federal magistrate court in Las Vegas. And he ended up paying a $5,000 fine and sentenced to, I think, the 40 days plus 180 more days. And plus they took all the property from him, including their car.
Oh.
So that was, and back when I was there, they handled things a little bit differently. Any type of intrusion was handled by the federal authorities. We were federal agents too. So everything went to federal court. We didn't call now if it was near the gate, we would call either Nye County sheriffs or Lincoln County. But if they actually penetrated the perimeter, they were ours. We would seize everything, search them, and
they did. They did. They were ruthless. Yeah, they were ruthless. Couldn't even go for a weed by yourself. But anyway, so I wouldn't. Yeah, and then when they said that everyone was going to storm Area 51, I thought, good luck with that. Good luck with that. I know I know exactly, like that's really going to happen. But anyways, right. So back in the room. Also, I've been going through some bits and bobs that I've found on you, and some of your documentaries. You've spoken about, you've been briefed on the threat imposed by extraterrestrial crafts and shown pictures of different types of extraterrestrials along with their various shaped crafts. So what have you actually personally witnessed yourself, please?
Well, I haven't. First of all, let me explain something. In the intelligence community, there's such a thing as need to know.
Yeah.
You might have a high security clearance, which I had. I had all what we call tickets punched, but I didn't have access to everything because I didn't have a need to know. In fact, the 5 OSI agents that were stationed at Groom Lake, and there were 2 others stationed over at Tonopah. It's ironically, we didn't know what the other agents were doing unless they needed help or I needed help. So I didn't have access to everything pertaining to the extraterrestrials that we knew, the government knew that existed during that time period. There were 5 of them. But I didn't, I only knew that there were 5. I knew the general description of them, but I didn't know anything else. I didn't know where they came from, the types of crafts they flew. So I didn't have any of that knowledge. The only time I've ever actually saw one was during a closed circuit camera. I was at a security building, a highly security building, and we had, or the government had some races of ETs housed there at what they call S2 Annex, which was northwest of Papoose Lake. And there was a interrogation of a particular species of ET, a gray, and I was in a security office watching on a camera, a closed circuit camera, and the camera, of course, a video monitor I was looking at. The camera was in the annex some miles away. So that's the only time I've ever actually saw an ET semi in person, because I was looking at in real time. But I've never ever met one other than that. I never met one in person. I never had any kind of interactions with any type of ETs. There were other OSI agents that did, but not me. So that's all I can say.
So the other agents that did, had they had experiences before, or are they going in like for the first time with a being and then communicating with a being?
Well, here's one of the problems that they had. We knew of 5 races of ETs that had visited Earth, and we had some sort of contact with the U.S. government. But every one of them came from a different civilization. They had different biologies. They had different science, different technologies, and different ways of communicating. So it was very difficult for us to understand them or communicate thoroughly with them because we didn't know their language. Maybe they knew ours or could communicate in some manner. We only knew one, and that was the Eben, the one that was involved in the Roswell crash, actually Cronin, New Mexico, where the craft was found. And he lived in captivity for 5 years, and we were able to communicate. That was between 47 and 52, obviously way before my time, but there was a lot written, still classified, and what he told us or how we communicated with him. The only person that I know that might be able to answer questions more than I can is Linda Howell, because she spoke with the captain, Air Force captain, who lived with that extraterrestrial for that 5-year period. And so he told her a lot of things. I'm sure a lot of things he couldn't tell her about what transpired between him and the ET. But as far as communicating with him, I'm sure we did. I'm sure we found ways to do it, but I don't have that information.
I mean, we've got experiences that have had communication or having encounters with various types of beings. I can say that I've had encounters with balls, orbs, beings, just one form of being. So you've got other people that have other forms of being, but they all communicate telepathically with them.
Well, the only thing I know is that some particular races communicate through what they call a thought transfer rather than telepathic. The you think and they think, and your thoughts are transposed into the ET and their thoughts or transports rather than actually telepathic.
Yes,
In fact,
kind of that's what I mean. Yeah.
So
it's like you're getting told things, and then you tell them back. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a little bit different than telepathic. It's
reading. Not reading someone's mind. Yeah, sorry, I got that wrong. Not reading someone's mind. It's the thoughts come in that's been transferred to you, and then you're reading it in your head, and then you're giving your reaction back to them. That's,
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what happens. Yeah, exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, because then also you've got what I found one here on a transcript saying the being had cat-like eyes, and you called it creature, or the being had cat-like eyes, and genetically engineered creatures were also present, according to the briefing in 1985. Now, I've been shown a being under hypnosis. I will say that, under hypnosis with Dolores Cannon. And the being then took the film off its eye, and then it had cat-like eyes, slits for eyes, and a really stagnant green, really watery green eyes. But that was really interesting that had come up, because I'd never really heard many people say about the cat-like eyes until in the last 10-15 years.
Yeah, that's interesting. I unfortunately have never had a abduction or a experience or a contact. And so I wish I have. I wish it had. I've investigated.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know. A friend told me that. I've investigated abductions, but they weren't necessarily pleasant experiences for the abductee, and that's the only experience I had. I've spoke to many experiencers at UFO conventions and many contactees, and I find their information very interesting. So you would know a lot more about how to communicate or how you did it than I would know.
Well, it started as a young child and it still continues. So, and every single encounter is different. And I know why it's different. It's because you've got to learn it a different way. And there's something very different about it. So, yeah, I mean, anyway, that's another day. No, that's another talk another day.
Yes.
So, right. Also, what I'm really interested in, what I read as well, is about the witnessing balls of light and how that is communicated to one of the officers. It's like that you call it a reconnaissance orb.
Yeah, there.
And that was at Area 51, Groom Lake.
Yeah. There are instances. There was an incident that occurred inside Area 51 that I investigated regarding orbs. The orb seems to be some sort. Yeah, they are highly sophisticated contraptions, gadgets. Some of us call it. That can do things that photograph, maybe even video, some kind of video collection, and plus sound and image collection that we don't understand. But that's they normally
a bit like the film The Abyss.
They normally appear. Right, they normally appear before the craft comes, and the indication, the actual, if you watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind when they were at the Devil's Tower, the orbs came in first.
Yeah.
That's exactly, and of course that movie's based on some information that Steven Spielberg obtained from 2 intelligence officers who were on set. Anyways, that's kind of like the way they did it. They would send the orbs in almost like a reconnaissance to check to make sure the safe area was safe or whatever.
Searchers.
Right, and then the craft would appear after that. Yes.
Okay. Well. Okay.
One or two crafts. Yeah.
All right. Well, generally the orbs come in threes, like the beings come in threes, from what I've seen. Or you can get different. I've seen orbs like like those exercise balls the size of one of those, just there. So I've had to call my son down. We've just been staring at it for ages. I mean, I've seen loads of different ones, in like blue lights that come in through the window. Did a figure of 8 around by the bed and then went back out through the window again. Yeah, and they're all different. Every single one of them is different. So it was really interesting when you said here, claims to have seen and developed photographs of extraterrestrials, reconnaissance orbs conducting experiments on humans at Area 51. You missed that bit out.
Yeah,
so what does that mean?
That's the two abductees, two ladies driving outside the Nellis Test and Training Range on Nevada Route 6 were abducted, taken to a location inside Nellis Test and Training Range. They were in some kind of facility. They don't know if it was inside a spacecraft or at some other location, but these little tiny orbs would fly around. They were paralyzed in a chair. One of the ladies was 40, like 45, and the other one was a little over 50, 51, 52. And they would, they put them in a chair, and these little orbs would fly all around them. And what we think, after interviewing him, we think that these orbs, they couldn't see any aliens at all. They couldn't see any ETs whatsoever. They're in a dark room with a light above their heads, and these little balls or little orbs were flying all over their body from their head down to their feet. And so we suspected that was some sort of an examination being done by these orbs. Now, maybe there was some other reason, but obviously, we can't get in the mind of the ET, so we don't know what they were doing, but we suspected it was some sort of an examination of them. Now,
I got a
they
thought.
were, the women were fully clothed. They didn't take any clothes off except for their shoes. Their shoes weren't on. And we never found their shoes. So
yeah, okay, yeah.
When we found him, the security personnel at Tonopah, the test range, found these ladies walking out in the middle of nowhere, literally nowhere, in a test range. They were without shoes. They had their socks on, but they didn't have any shoes. And we don't know why they would have kept their shoes, or maybe the ETs didn't know what they were. I don't know, but we never found their shoes.
I'm a little bit lost. Hang on a minute. So all of a sudden they are outside. Then all of a sudden, could it be a screen memory because they are out by sort of like Nellis? They're out by the Air Force Base. Could it be a screen memory because we know that them upstairs are very good at screen memories? Could it be a screen memory that they are there sitting down? The orbs are all around them. They're envisioning that they are in a military installment, and then how did they get to be outside?
Oh yeah, there's a lot more to the story.
Well, now I need to know that little bit. Everyone else does.
There's a lot more to the story. Yeah, they're in this room, and these orbs. You asked me about the orbs. The orbs are flying around, and they don't know why. They don't have any sense of time either.
As Bud Hopkins always says, there's a start, there's a middle, and an end. So continue.
I have an interesting story to tell you about Bud too. But anyways, they didn't have any sense of time, but they were they were aware, which is ironic. A psychiatrist can explain this better than I can. I'm not a psychiatrist. They were obviously aware that they didn't know, they didn't have any sense of time. Now. That's an interesting point if you think about it, because normally people don't think about time. I mean, you just operate every day and you don't think about time unless you have to get someplace at a certain hour or there's a clock up there. But they didn't have any sense. They didn't have a watch on, so they couldn't see, and plus they couldn't move. And so these things were flying around. They don't know how long these things were flying around, and then he disappeared. And now they're sitting in this chair, paralyzed. Their eyes could move, but they didn't see anything. Everything was black behind him, in front of him. And all of a sudden, then the lights started coming on. And then they see the creatures. The creatures come up to them. They were very tall creatures, elongated faces, deep set black eyes. They didn't see any pupils. And as these creatures came up to them, they started hearing voices in their head.
Yeah.
We're not going to hurt you. We're not here to harm you. They kept assuring them. And the lady, the older lady, the one that's 52 or so, she says that the voice she hearing was distinctly a female voice. The other lady that was in 45 or so, she said it was a male talking to her. She could hear a male voice.
One could have heard a female, one could have heard a male. There could have been more there.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
But they only saw these two, and the only interaction they had with any of the ETs, they think there were some in the background. Only those two that were really, really close to them, as if they were just maybe 4 or 5 inches from their face. They were really close, and stayed that way during this entire encounter, which then included a full body examination. They don't remember. They knew their clothes were on, but immediately at some point they realized their clothes were off. They don't know how they got off. They didn't see anybody take them off. And then they did a full medical examination from head to toe, looking at their eyes, taking samples inside their mouth, taking samples inside the vagina, took a toenail off each one of them, one with the right foot, one left foot. But there wasn't any blood and there wasn't any pain, but they took the toenail off. And then they went to sleep. They said all of a sudden they were sleeping, and they wake up and they're floating. They can't move, but they're floating, but they see the sky.
All the time.
And all of a sudden they're on the ground.
Okay.
They don't hit hard or anything like that. And so they get up and they don't know where they are. They're looking for their car, but their car is miles and miles away.
Is this documented? Richard? Is this somewhere that everyone can read and I can go and read up about?
It was documented. It's probably still classified. Now, the only ones that have released anything was a 52-year-old. She spoke at a UFO convention.
Okay. Do we have a name? Do we have a name
2000, for her? I'm trying to think of when it was. Just Barbara. All she went by was Barbara.
Okay.
I think it was 2005 or 6.
Okay.
And this incident happened in 1982. Okay. So
okay.
we don't know. I think the government knows what happened to the other one. But I only know because I was at the UFO convention when she spoke.
Okay.
And she gave a lot more details than I have given, but because she spoke for 90 minutes. And but she says when she woke up, I mean, when they were on the ground, they got up, and the first thing they noticed was they didn't have any shoes. And so they were trying to find their car because they didn't know where they were. And as they walked, they saw a vehicle, and that was a security personnel, Air Force security at Tonopah. And they picked them up, took them to a building. They went through a medical examination. Eventually, we got called. I responded to Tonopah, not along with another agent. We interviewed them then, and then they were turned over to other people who specializes in abduction investigations, and I had no further contact with them.
So now that you have, there's a few questions I want to ask you. So now you've got the UAP Medical Coalition that's just sort of like come across, obviously through Congress, pilots, everybody that has witnessed something will have somewhere hopefully soon to go medically to be able to talk to. Now, I know for 30 years I've been speaking openly about my experiences, and you've got the likes of Whitley Schreiber, you've got the likes of so many people that have had to deal with it and had nobody to talk to except for the UFO community, or go and work with Dolores Cannon, Bud Hopkins, John Mack. We've had those people that we can that give us insight and help and compassion, really, from what we've been through. So the other question was, how now do you think, what do you think is going to happen medically to people going forward because of Congress for the medical coalition? Do you think that the medical field will take this seriously? I mean, I know that we have hypnotherapists out there that deal with people that want regression hypnosis, and a lot of people don't necessarily believe in it. I mean, I'm still on the shelf. I'm totally still on the shelf about it. What I remember consciously and what I don't remember is through hypnosis. I'm only really interested in what I physically remember with my own eyes and my own heart. So do you see a way forward for that, for like the pilots? Because you've got pilots that have just had one-off encounter that is, you know, with a very close craft, or you've got people that are, that's why I said to you, is there other military people that actually have had continuous experiences? Well, I know of a few, but how do you feel that it's going to go medically for people? Would you see that we're going to have a place that we can, a forum that we can all talk openly?
Well, the military, we got to separate here the civilian community from the military community. There are thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, but thousands of cases of contacts with extraterrestrial by military personnel that are still classified. They haven't been released to the public. And so those encounters, you know, every military person that had some sort of contact with an extraterrestrial is examined. Their medical records are classified. I don't know what they found. I never was involved in any of that stuff. But now you're talking about civilian community. The civilians,
I mean, the cover-up is absolutely massive. I mean, you know, it really is, because it's not just having a close encounter, it's all of the repercussions from having that encounter, you know, whether it be family related, relationship related, just walking away from having a UFO encounter in itself is just like, whoa, you know, it takes time.
I agree. Now, I don't know how the government's going to respond to this once disclosure is open. Right now, it's going. Disclosure is being held up by a number of different entities within the government. There's a number of congressmen and House members within our Senate and House of Representatives that don't want disclosure for various reasons. There's the intelligence communities. Most of them don't want disclosures. And then finally, the defense contractors who have the materials that they gathered from UAPs and they making money on them, they don't want it disclosure to occur. So I don't know how the disclosure will end up. I think the plan right now is to have some sort of soft disclosure, historical disclosure, but nothing in great details.
That's rubbish. Well, it's more than rubbish, actually. I could swear really a lot, but I think this has to be taken a lot more seriously. I know that there's a difference between America and there is a difference between England. We're not as open here in England as you are out in the States, but it takes the likes of all witnesses to go forward. So that's all I can say. I think some people want to ask a question as well, but I am going to talk to you because there's quite a few people. What is your ratio between you call us civilians, or you know, other human beings, of having a close encounter that involves military helicopters? How often did you research and look into that, Richard?
How many cases of
was it quite high or low? Was it high or low? Well,
me personally, and remember during that time period, there were 122 other Air Force OSI agents doing the exact same thing I did. So they were gathering information I didn't know. In my case, I think I only investigated a couple incidents involving helicopters.
Did you do the Cash Landrum case?
No, I didn't investigate the Cash Landrum case. I knew of the Cash Landrum case because the craft that was used to fly out of Area 51 down to Webb Air Force Base came from Area 51. And when the incident happened, we immediately started our own investigation on the craft at the request of the Air Force inside Area 51. So I knew the craft, I knew basically what happened, but I wasn't down there investigating it. There were other agents from other bases, but it was an extraterrestrial craft that was using our government, U.S. government propulsion system, a nuclear propulsion system, because we couldn't figure out how the alien propulsion system worked. So they took that off and put this nuclear propulsion system on. It was tested for many months up in Area 51, and decided to fly it down to Webb Air Force Base for some reason, I don't know. And that's when it malfunctioned, and Cash Landrum were the victims of that, and the boy.
Because my case is a bit like Cash Landrum's case. So mine was on the freeway in Los Angeles in Brentwood. In broad daylight. That I'll just say it very, very quickly. It was a craft that just appeared from the left that I saw, and then it appeared in front of the car in front of me, the car's trunk. It's myself and then another witness with me. She didn't notice it at first. I noticed it, the tip of it out of the corner of my eye. It then came up, went over the trunk of the car in front of me. The traffic lights had stopped. And then I'm just now looking underneath this craft. I was going to call it the Billy Mayer craft, the Palladium craft. It was exactly like that. It had a beautiful red-orange power source underneath it. And I'm looking underneath it. And at that point, then I swear, and then the girl then is now looking underneath it with me. It's got no fuselage, it's got no wings, it's got nothing. It's about 45 foot in length. It's, it's so close, I feel that I can touch it. It then glides very slowly, but I want to say fast, but yet slow, at this funny sort of like way that it did, over towards the traffic lights to the right. Got UCLA College to the right, and it went over towards UCLA College. So this was about 5:45 at night. Nice summer, well, it was in February 93. It went over towards UCLA College. The traffic lights then came back on, so this object stopped the traffic lights. It then, I then got told in my head, so, this is the communication that's happened a few times in this incident. Got told in my head that I can't go right. I had to get up high, Now, that could be a human response to be able to get up high, because this thing was, a little bit higher up. It must have been about 12 meters away from me, if that. I then turned to the left to go over the bridge, to go over the freeway. I remember looking behind in my rear view and seeing what I call the back arse of it going through the tops of the trees. So this thing's moving through the tops of the trees. Now, Richard, so Annie Jacobson asked me a question. I met up with her out in the States. She said to me, did I ever at any point think it was a military UFO? And I said, no. Now, obviously, I might not know, because what you're telling me is of how advanced the military have of back engineering various things. But let me tell you, there is a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there is more to the story. And I know that it was one of them. So I go up high. I get told to go up high by the Holiday Inn. I get out of the car with her. We both look in the same position. I say, where do you think it went? She pointed, I pointed. My eyes were watering. I felt sick. I felt like drunk. I had the shakes, got back into the car. Cut a long story short, I went to this girl's house within about a duration of about 5 minutes. I went to go and pull the car back out of her drive. There in front of me was this sort of Men in Black car. It was just there. It was this black car, that had tinted windows. Obviously, this is Brentwood. This is not too far away from Los Angeles. So you've got all the Hollywood cars, and I get all of that. But I had the communication then, and this communication said to me, it's been put there for you not to forget. It's been put here for you to remember this. Why? It's because I have, my dad always had classic cars, and it was sort of like a screen memory. This is here. This is, you're not going to forget this day. I then, because you can forget UFO encounters, as you possibly know. So then it then moved off into the traffic. My eyes were watering. I felt like I was crying. I then moved into the traffic, back towards the freeway, back onto the off ramp. And because my window was wound down, I heard a roaring noise. It was 4 to 5 unmarked military helicopters going towards UCLA College to intercept it. So that's broad daylight, Los Angeles, Brentwood, in '93. I've just come across another gentleman that has had an encounter that involved military helicopters in broad daylight as well. So, you know, what is the chances of all of this, you know, being a military staged encounter for somebody? I don't think it was. I know it wasn't.
I don't. You know, I don't have any statistics on that.
You need to make a few calls. But what I'm saying is,
in 1993, normally military would do exercises and experiments on military areas, land or bases. But I don't know. It's quite an extraordinary experience that you had, but I couldn't say what one way or the other what it was.
Well, or what cost the thing is, there's got to be a report for that, right? If the military were called out.
Yeah, unless it's classified. You know, well, if it wasn't in fact a ET craft that they were chasing, yeah, there would be a report, but it would be sensitive compartment information. You would never get it. Yeah, but yeah, there would be a report someplace.
Wouldn't it be nice if they talked to me and then I could give them a little bit more information on the matter?
Well, if you become a whistleblower, there's a lot of whistleblowers, about 88 of them right now, and I'm one of them. But they screen you very carefully. But I don't know of any whistleblower except for one man that is not military or government, former government or retired. We're not looking at civilians, are only looking at the military or intelligence people. The only civilian is the guy that he was the medic on board the oil company helicopter in Alaska when the military shot down that craft in January of this year. He was went out there as a search and rescue helicopter medic, and he got out and walked up to the craft that they shot down. And so he's the only civilian I know that's listed as a whistleblower.
Interesting. Okay, that's just one story of mine, one encounter. Okay, all right. Let's have a look. What else have we got to ask you now? So in regards to, I have two questions. Actually, there's some people asking questions, but race, you have to go to it. I can't go to the comments. So everyone's sort of like asking a few things, but I can't go to the comments. So what race of beings create crop circles? Yep. Well, it's an energy. No, exactly. They're orbs. They're orbs that do.
I wouldn't have any idea what race it would make.
Okay, right. So I have two guys, military guys, that I have got to know, and they want to ask a question. And their questions would be, has the AFOSI ever worked with the UK Ministry of Defence military police on any UK cases? I think he's sort of like meaning Brentwaters or Lakenheath. Yeah, same thing. Have you worked together?
There have been a number of them. One was, of course, Bentwaters or Woodbridge Bentwaters case.
Yeah.
Worked very carefully with MOD police, and then there was another one that was occurred in the 70s that is just surfacing now by some UK investigators, and I can't even pronounce the place. It was Abbey Wasworth, the case in Abbey Wasworth, near Wales, a UFO
Oh,
crash.
oh, anything in Wales is very hard to say.
Pronounce, anyways.
Pronounce, yeah.
And anyways,
Bless us.
that we worked with them. Those are the only 2 cases I know.
Oh,
But I'm sure
is
we
it?
did. I'm sure the OSI guys that are stationed in the UK work with them very normally,
Okay.
all the time. But I don't know. I don't know any particular occasions, but those 2.
Okay, and then was the disclosure document shown to Linda Morton how real or more of disinformation? Please.
No, Linda Howell. That was an operation that I was asked to become involved with. I didn't know who she was. It came down from headquarters. I was told to go make contact with her, bring her into the office, and show her a document that just came in about 2 hours before she did, in a pouch,
Oh, right.
a Armed Forces courier pouch. I opened it up. I looked at it, and I did exactly what I was told to do. There was a 2-way mirror, so everything was being recorded. I showed her. I don't know anything about the document. Whether I'm sure half of it was real, because when we run deception operations, we don't run disinformation. It's called deception operations.
Yes.
Some of the information that is provided has to be real, or it's not going to work. So I'm sure some of the stuff that she read was real.
What you've said tonight, is that real or not? Are you
No, I don't. Number one, I left government service in '88. I wouldn't have any reason to perform any deception operations now.
Okay.
And I think over the years, over the 35 years I've been out lecturing, people accept the fact that I'm not a government agent anymore.
Yeah. Okay, right. This is a very good question. This might be the last question, unless someone wants to say something else. Right. It's not a trick question, and it's not a point scoring question, but it's just something. It says, how do you weigh the potential harms from a counterintelligence mission against the operational imperative of achieving a mission's goal? And I'm not going to tell you who asked me to ask you that one.
Well, there's the mission. If the mission requires a counterintelligence operation, then we accept the outcome of the operation based on whatever we gather or whatever we can work within the counterintelligence arena. So we weigh that. That's somewhat of a good question, because sometimes the people that are outside the counterintelligence community, but within the Air Force, we might interrupt their mission to protect and to work the counterintelligence operation. So they sometimes question that, but there's always there always has to be a counterintelligence operation when you're dealing with special access programs.
So the collateral damage, is it legally or morally acceptable then? Oh, that was a smile.
Number one, I never killed anybody. I wasn't an assassin. I never harmed anyone. I never beat anybody up. I never had anybody beaten up. If they didn't want to cooperate with us in a counterintelligence operation, so be it. We sometimes would just leave them alone. But sometimes we would play a trick on them or two.
Yeah, exactly. I've had a lot of that.
We never harm him.
No,
we never harmed them in any ways. Now, are there other entities within the government that might do something more than what we would do? Yeah, there is. The real men in black. Those guys, they work out. They used to work out of the 7602nd Air Intelligence Wing out of Fort Belvoir. They were the ones that we couldn't do something. Sometimes our bosses, not me, but our bosses would call in them to get the job done. So
I remember.
But me, I never did anything.
I remember after Area 51, probably a couple of months later, about 3 or 4 months later, I was helping this diner and just having some work done in this diner. And these 6 military guys came in, sat at a table, didn't talk to one another at all. They kept looking over. And you just would have thought guys were just like They oozed military. They all came out of separate cars. They didn't even talk about anything. They just put their heads down, they just ate, and then just got up and walked out. And it was just, I felt so uncomfortable. Right, but yeah. Anyways, right. Richard, I'm going to have you back because I've got like loads of questions still. So I would be pleased if you could come back at another time. So Richard Doty, I would like to thank you for your time. You've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you for answering the questions, and I know other people wanted to ask you them. So thank you, Unacknowledged Radio, and thank you for tuning in to The Naked Truth by Bridget Barclay and Mr. Richard Doty. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Richard.